Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Marilyn Darling Show, and welcome to another episode of Pen Calligraphy 101. Today we're going to be talking about nibs. Specifically, we're going to be talking about dip nibs and all of the variations there are of dip nibs out there. So, Alexa, stop. Alright, let's begin. I need to paste the link from here to the Patreon and select a tier and publish. Save. Alright, I'm live. So, today we're going to be talking about nibs. We're going to be troubleshooting nibs and telling you what you can and what you probably shouldn't be doing with them. There are so many nibs out there right now. If you're looking for a specific nib, you can go to johnneilbooks.com and you can find multiple nibs. There's probably 100 different dip nibs out there. So, if you just search in the box for dip nib, a whole plethora of dip nibs will come up. Some of the most popular are the G nibs, and there's even some broad edge nibs out there. If I could just find the page that I want, that's not the page that I want. Come on, John Neal, what the heck are you doing? Dip nibs. Okay, you have to put nibs, plural, nibs. And then you will see, oops, you can't even see what I'm looking at. You will see, if you put dip nibs, you will see a plethora of different dip nibs on their site that you can order. Today we're going to talk about flexible dip nibs. If I can find some dip nibs. If you you can search for pointed nibs, and it will bring up all of these different nibs. And they range anywhere from $1 to and up. There's some for 99 cents and up. I would advise you to either get a 10-pack of Zebra G nibs or to get as many of the other nibs as you can. The titanium ones last longer, so maybe get a couple of those. Any of the G nibs are good. I have the Tachikawa G, I have the Nikko G, I have even the Hunt 101 and Leonard Principal EF. There's a Hunt 101. That's a good nib. A Jalot 404 is a good nib. Hunt 22B is a good nib. Lennart Principal EF is a good nib. Most of these are going to be pretty soft nibs. So you want to, my advice to you is to get a harder, a stiffer nib than a softer nib. And I'll show you why. Alright, so let's just start. This here is a blue pumpkin. Okay, this here is a blue pumpkin nib. It is also called a Leonard 40 nib. Let's see. It is also called a Steno 361 nib. And this is what it looks, this is what it looks like. Kind of looks like a bulbous pumpkin. Oops. Dang it. Okay. This here is a G nib, and you can tell because it has a big old G on it. And this one just happens to be a Superior Tachikawa number 8 nib. Okay. This is also a G nib. And you can see that it says Tachikawa Zebra. It says, oh, it says Ishikawa Zebra, Tokyo, Japan. And they looked the same. What is this nib? Oh, this is a zebra nib too. What is this? This is a Nico G. Tachikawa. So the G nibs all kind of have the same look to them. They all kind of have the same look. What is really the difference is the size of their breather hole, which makes them different stiffness. So this one here has the smallest breather hole, and this is a, can I have some? This is a Nico G. It has one of the smallest breather holes. This is a Tachikawa G. And this is a Zebra G. Okay. And as you can see, oops, did I put what I did? One on top of the other. As you can see, they all kind of look alike. So you might need a loop, to figure out which one they are if your eyes are not as good as some people's. Alright, so these are the G nibs. Here we have So I can move in. This is a Leonard. EF, Principal EF. A Leonard Principal EF. And this is a very old nib. This nib is probably 5 years old. But it's still going because I keep sharpening it. So that's just something to consider also. Okay? And this Leonard EF Principal looks just like another nib. This is the Hunt 101. The Hunt Imperial 101. Now, when you're looking at a nib and it has a number on it, you want to face the nib, the pointed end towards you when you're trying to identify the numbers. Okay? Let's see, what's another one? This is a smaller nib. This here is a Joseph Jellett Extra Fine 303. And this is a very flexible nib. We also have here, this is an Arrow. This is a Leonard 30 England. And it's also, all of these are, most of them are flexible. So far. Alright, what do we have here? This is, this is a Hunt Extra Fine 22B. Alright, and that's a rather old one, and here is a new Hunt Extra Fine 22. And this one kind of looks like the 22, but this is a Hunt School Round Point USA. This is a Hunt 56. This is a very stiff nib. Oh, I forgot to mention that there are nibs that kind of look the same but have totally different properties. This is a Central. What does this say? I can't even see it. And Department Cementi number 2552. So all of the nibs have different numbers on them. So far we have looked at all flexible. Oh, I forgot one. What is this? This is a Hunt 22. All of my nibs are in some sort of disarray. These are not new nibs. Alright, the next type of nib that you may come across is you're going to come across broad nibs. They're called broad nibs because they're not flexible. No matter how much pressure you put on them, they're not going to flex. This is a Can I have some? Great, thanks. This is a Browse. This is a Browse 755 10. What does the 10 mean? 10, I believe, refers to the width of the nib and, oops, that is 10 millimeters, 10 millimeters across, or 1 centimeter. Alright, other nibs that you're going to come across are fountain pen-like nibs. This is a dip nib in a fountain pen configuration. It has a feed so that when you dip it into ink, you can use it as a fountain pen. This is most of these flexible ones are made of spring steel, and some of them are made of brass. These non-flexible ones are made of brass. You can tell because they're not gold, but they're not they're not copper either. This is stainless steel. It's a thicker metal than the spring steel. Spring steel is made so that it's very flexible. And stainless steel is not flexible. So you can definitely tell I'm pressing really hard in order to get it to flex out. It's not really meant to be a flex nib. There are nibs out there that are meant to flex, that are fountain pen nibs, and let me just show you one of my favorite flex nibs. This is fpnibs.com, number 6 Yovo 14 karat full flex nib, and it has a lot of flexibility. It's made of gold, 14 karat gold, and this was one nib was $300. One of these nibs is probably less than $3 or $4. Most of these nibs are under $5 a piece. And the Zebra G nibs are about $1 a piece. So they're all different. And the other pens that you might come into contact are vintage dip nibs. This is a Victorian style dip nib. It's 14 karat gold. It's 10 carats, and it's super soft. Barely takes any pressure to flex it. Right there it says 10K. And this is a Victorian aged dip nib. And this is made of mother of pearl. So this is very expensive. Other dip nibs that you're going to come across are the Tachikawa or Kakamori dip nibs. This is a Kakamori stainless steel dip nib. It has multiple channels in it that hold ink, and this Tachikawa nib holder was, I think, specifically made for this because it has both of the has the precise precision size for this Tachikawa, this Kakamori dip nib. And this is a stainless steel. They also come in brass, and they're rather expensive also. And then there is the Pensive Pens Serendipity with a Yovo nib. This is stainless steel, and it comes with a plastic feed, and you can see through it. They do come with opaque ones, which are not see-through, and they're like a fountain pen. They come with a normal fountain pen Yovo feed, and they're just friction fit in there, and you can use them and write with them, which is very handy if you like to try out lots of inks like I do. What else? The other type of nib flexible pen holder, this is Ackerman pump pen. It has a little bladder right here, and in this one is also a fountain pen. You can fill this little cartridge and it'll allow you to have enough ink to come out down this feed to the tip of the nib, and it holds a Zebra G nib. And they make different pens to hold different size nibs. They have I will try and remember to link their I will try and remember to link their link below. Oh, my brain's tired out. It's time to eat something. Let's see, do I have any other dip nibs? No, I don't think I do. Well, alright, let's talk about the parts of the fountain. Let's talk about the parts of the nib. Each part of the nib has a tip at the end of the nib. It's sharp, so you don't want to touch it. And you also don't want to touch it because the oils on your hand will impede the flow of the ink onto the paper. So you want to hold it back here on what are known as the shoulders. Okay, these little bits back here, these sides right here, are known as the shoulders. Okay, the nib is made of one piece of metal with a slit that runs down 2 tines, and this breather hole. The place underneath the nib, that the curvature of the nib is called the reservoir. That's what holds the ink due to capillary action. When they made these, they were really thinking thoughts about how they could get the ink to stick to the nib without completely falling off the nib. And this curvature was what ended up being the nib, that the shape that held the ink the best. Shoulders. Now, some nibs will have what are called cutouts. You'll see right here, there's a cutout in the shape of a T. Right there, you see it? And the cutout makes it so that the pen the nib is able to be flexed more than, say, one that doesn't have any slits in it. This one although they may be very small. Let's see if I can get in here. You can see right there, there's a cutout right there. And there's one right there too. This one does not have any cutouts that I can see of. Oops, sorry. Try to make it so we can see. Oh, there is a cutout right there. You can see cutouts. This one doesn't have any cutouts because the tines are very long compared to, see where the breather section, see how long those tines are? The breather hole and the tines are like basically how to determine how flexible your nib is going to be. If you have really long tines, you're not going to have to use a lot of downward pressure to make the tines splay. When the tines splay, that's when they spread apart. And each nib will have a different amount of flexibility. Some nibs, like the Hunt 56 here, will be very stiff and take a lot of pressure to push down on. Also, the Zebra G nibs take a lot of pressure. Zebra G nibs take a lot of pressure to push down to splay the tines, to spread them apart. What is this? This is a Zebra G. This very stiff nib. Very stiff nib. Great for practicing. What is this? This is a Nico G. This is a less stiffer nib. Takes a little less pressure because of that cutout on the sides. It's a little bit bigger than the Zebra G. You can see the difference in the size of the cutouts will determine how flexible the nib is going to be. There's more flexibility in this Zebra G than the Nico G. And then you'll have these types of cutouts, and these are super flexible because the part between the widest part between the edge of the nib and the flexible part of the nib are super small, and you can even see that in the what is this, Nico G? No, this is a Zebra G. See how small this little bit is? This would be the part right in here that's doing the flexing. Nothing back here flexes, and nothing, well, this part forward flexes a little bit. Right here, this is where it is mainly doing of the flexing. So you can see that the part between here and here is very small, and from here on forward, that's the part that does the flexing. The edge. Alright, we talked about the slit. Most of the times, the slit is down the middle of the nib, and once in a great while you will see that the edge of the nib is a little off. So sometimes if you find the nib is a little higher on one end or lower, you might have to use your finger to push it up or pull it down just with your thumb, and it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure, so you have to be very careful when you're doing that. So when you're... And then here, you can see that this pen, this nib, has a super long, flexible bit and a really long tine. So this is one of the most flexible pen nibs that you will find. This is a blue pumpkin, by the way. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the vintage dip nibs. They're made of gold, so they only go so far before they will break. You have to be very careful with gold. It's a very soft metal. The lower the number, the softer the metal. The higher the number, the less of the gold, but the more of other types of metals are introduced, making them a more stiffer nib. So this is 10 karat gold, which is very soft. The 14 karat gold is a little stiffer. However, depending on how long the tines are, you can have a very, very flexible nib, depending on how thin the shoulders are compared to the breather hole. Okay? The tipping. Okay, let's talk about tipping for a minute. The tipping of most spring steel nibs are untipped. That means that there is no amount of iridium or any hard metal surface on the very end of the nib, which makes them prone to, for a better word, dying. The nib will corrode at the tip of the nib faster than it would, say, a stainless steel nib, because they're made of two different types of steel. This one will corrode, and this one won't corrode. And what will happen is, eventually, over time, your nib will become scratchy in one direction or another, and you will either need to smooth the nib, which we will talk about later, or you will need to replace the nib and start with a new nib. And let me just tell you right now, I have had, where is it? I have had this one for about 5 years, and oh, it shows. Look at all of that crap under there. Can't even tell the name of the nib because there's so much crap on here. But I've had this one for 5 years, and that's because I keep shaving the tip with grinding techniques, which we won't talk about today, but later. Other types of nibs will have a little tiny ball of iridium. Where are we? A little tiny ball of iridium on the tip of the nib. This is a hardened metal. Some call it iridium. It's just the name of what they call the little ball at the end. Some are made of actual iridium, which are made from comets that have crashed into the Earth, which is a super hard metal that's will outlast most any pen. And even some gold nibs will have a little tiny piece of iridium or metal glued welded onto the tip of the nib to keep the nib from wearing out so fast. I don't know if this And sometimes the piece of iridium can be so small that you can barely even see it. See, there's a itty bitty teeny piece of iridium on the tip of these nibs. This is the Kakamori dip nib, and even it has a little tiny piece of iridium or tipping on it to keep it running smooth. And of course, the Yovo nibs have tipping on them that range from extra fine all the way up to all the way up to like probably 5 millimeters, which is gigantic. And yeah. We've talked about the reservoir, the underside of the nib, and just this this way of the breather hole is called the reservoir, and that's because of the curvature of the nib. Okay. And the spring. Okay, the spring is talking about the amount of flexibility for each nib. Each of these pointed pins are flexible to a certain degree, and the broad nibs are not flexible, clearly. And then there's a spring back. There is this thing where the time it takes for your nib to come back to its natural unflexed position in a timely manner. Some call it mush. Some nibs can be what are called mushy. The curvature of the nib might be tighter on one type of nib than the other. You can kind of see the difference there, which means that one will come back really quickly, have a good spring back, and the other might come back kind of mushily. And that all depends on the curvature of the nib and the stiffness of the curvature. And then let's talk about the width. Each of the widths are going to be different. You might have an extra fine nib, and you might have a nib that is fine but not super fine. The Leonard Principle and EF nib is probably of the finest nibs that you will find on the market today, unless you go with a 14 karat extra fine nib from fpnibs.com, which $300 for one nib. You can't flex it too much, so just saying. And some nibs will be broader than other nibs of the same brand. So this is why I highly recommend that if you're gonna buy one type of nib, that you buy more than 3 of them, because you're gonna find that one of them is gonna be very, very fine, and one of them might be very, very scratchy or broad, or unusably broad. Some nibs, if you regrind them, will become a small stub, which means that they will be broader on the downstroke than they will on the cross stroke. Which is fine if that's the lettering that you're going for. And we will talk about ways that you can regrind them and use them later on in the class. Well, what have I missed? Alright, I think that is all that I can talk about for today. So if you guys have any questions, please leave those in the comment section below, and I will try and do my best to answer them. Alright, so that is all for today. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. I hope that you learned something. Please share this video with your friends. Follow me on social media. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the little bell. Make sure it's set to all so when I upload new content, YouTube notifies you, and I will be back very soon with another video. So, take care until then. Okay, love you, bye. Have a great day.